The power relationship between China and the world, and particularly between the US and China, has really shifted in some very dramatic ways. You all set? When Deng Xiaoping arrived at Andrews Air Force Base outside Washington in January 1979, his country was just emerging from a long revolutionary deep freeze. No one knew much about this 5'4" tall Chinese leader. But in 1979, he knew exactly what he wanted: better relations with the US. He and President Jimmy Carter appeared to be serious about resolving differences.
The United States of America and the People's Republic of China have agreed to recognize each other and to establish diplomatic relations as of January the 1st, 1979.
I remember very vividly when Deng Xiaoping went to Houston and we all went out to a rodeo. I mean, here's Deng Xiaoping, he walks into this arena and everybody's singing country western songs, and up gallops a Texas sort of cheerleader type cowgirl and puts a 10-gallon hat on his head. And then the crowd just went nuts. Okay, here's theater. Here's permission for both countries to, say it's okay to get along. It's okay to have good relations with each other. The body language between Deng Xiaoping and Carter, not just on the trip in 1979, but subsequently, was incredibly, effusively receptive and warm. Right now, we have a much sort of cooler, more aloof kind of leadership interaction. At a meeting between Presidents Barack Obama and Xi Jinping in June 2013, Xi suggested trying to recapture some of the old Carter-Deng magic when he expressed his desire to see the two countries form a, quote, new kind of big power relationship, a 新型大国关系. He implied that each country should accept the other as it is. The idea never really caught on. But this September, here was Jimmy Carter, the man who had helped set the US-China relationship in motion, back again in Beijing. When Jimmy Carter was going back, they invited me to come along, and I thought it'd be really interesting to see how he was received and if the Chinese really did want to reestablish a kind of a warmth in the relationship. When Carter arrived back in Beijing this September, his first stop was People's University. We found ourselves thrust into the middle of a forum on global finance, one more of the endless business conferences now proliferating in China, because the subject is safe. Only after forgettable addresses by the university president and a former UN trade investment specialist from Argentina was Carter able to present a short talk, followed by a single question. Watching this former US president be treated so offhandedly highlighted how the power relationship between the two countries is shifting. It's now not only the West that has wealth. Indeed, China is expected to soon surpass the US in GDP. The two dynamic elements in the world today are the US and China. And China is on the rise, and some people think the US is in something of a state of decline. It remains to be seen. Although Carter had met 4 times before with Xi Jinping, on this visit he met neither with him nor with Premier Li Keqiang, which seemed odd, because if they really do want better US-China relations, why ignore the man who had once done so much to improve them? The Chinese, moreover, had unceremoniously banned one invited member of Carter's delegation from speaking at a forum in the Great Hall of the People. Carter himself soon learned that his various host organizations had canceled or reorganized several events, and the Carter Center meeting for its Young American and Chinese Scholars Forum on US-China Relations program was moved off the Jiaotong campus and into a hotel. The high point of Carter's trip was to be a banquet in the Great Hall of the People, a cavernous tomb-like edifice thrown up by the people in 10 months during the Great Leap Forward in 1959, Its vast salons are calculated to awe and overwhelm. But the dinner for Carter was disappointingly flat. It was hosted by Vice President Li Yuanchao, who gave a short speech that had none of the actively friendly tone that had characterized meetings 35 years ago. As we ate amid a sea of half-empty tables, a Chinese professor whispered to me that President Xi, just days earlier, had met with the Zimbabwean president and international pariah, Robert Mugabe, calling him an old friend of the Chinese people whom we respect very much. He went on to say that Xi was actually in the Great Hall of the People toasting Malaysian Supreme Head of State, Abdul Halim Muhyiddin Shah, at the very moment of our dinner. But Xi didn't stop by the Carter dinner to say a word. I found it so depressing I left. I just walked out. After the banquet, when Jimmy Carter left Beijing, I looked through 6 or 7 papers, not a single article. Now, where the state controls the media, that's never an accident. The overall effect of the visit was to make the visitors feel the impossibility of making real contact. At one point, I heard from a source close to him that Carter was upset enough to consider just packing up and going home. You know, when it comes to big leader culture, the Chinese don't make mistakes. What you see is what you get, and it usually means something. And the question is, what does it mean? This is not to say that China would not love to have better relations with the US, but on its own terms. To compound the standoff, our diplomatic officials in the White House and the State Department have relatively little interest and experience in China and are distracted by many other urgent problems elsewhere. We have, moreover, a president possessed of a rather cool manner himself, who has so far been unable to warm up to his counterpart, Xi Jinping, also seemingly a very self-contained, reserved man with an often enigmatic smile. Xi Jinping, the first thing he did when he came into office, he said, "I have a dream. 中国梦, the Chinese dream, not your dream, our dream." The China dream is an idea launched by Xi that is now emblazoned on billboards, bus stops, and byways throughout the country. And it essentially plays to China's historical yearning for wealth, power, respect, and global standing. What it does not contain is any aspiration toward the Western conception of liberal democracy and humanistic values. What the Chinese seem to be saying, without being too explicit, they've always been masters of indirection, is that they will now be reckoned with on their own terms, not ours. Like it or not, this is the world's new reality.